Hello, folks. I am Ed Overstreet, and welcome to the Night Sky Imaging YouTube channel. Um, a couple things. Um, I am currently imaging the uh, the sun using the Solar Scout by Daystar Filters, and I called Daystar today, and I was interested in knowing what their thoughts were on using an IR UV cut filter. And the answer that I got was it's a yes and no. There is not a need for an energy reduction filter like an IR UV pass filter if um, your aperture of your telescope is 80 millimeters or less. And so the Solar Scout is a 60 millimeter um, telescope, and it has something equivalent to the Quark that's built in it. You can't take it off and add the IR UV cut filter, and that's really what I called about to see whether they felt that adding that filter before the camera would add any benefit, any contrast, and so their answer was that they could not find any significant change, whether you used one or you didn't use one. There was no difference. And so the question then is, if you're under 80 millimeters, and I am, in fact, when I'm using the Quark chromosphere, I'm using a 65 EDQ, which is 65 millimeters, and so and I've been using an IR UV cut filter. And so you're just adding another layer of glass, and anytime you add another layer of anything, you run the risk of adding another layer of dust motes and things you have to flat out in post processing. And so that's that. The second thing is my last several videos with the Quark chromosphere. Uh, I had a very difficult time of getting what I thought was a good focus, and so I kind of wrote it off to bad scene. And when I looked at the scene uh, conditions per a couple apps that I use, atmospheric and clear clear sky charts or whatever it is, and they both were pretty much saying the same thing. The scene was bad, so I had bad scene, and I thought, well, that's the reason why I'm just not getting any kind of contrast. Uh, but that was on the Quark chromosphere and the 65 EDQ. Writing on top of that was the Solar Scout, and I was getting some pretty decent contrast. So Bill Blanchard and I chit-chatted back and forth, and and he looked at my optical train and he had some suggestions, but he agreed there's something wrong with the Quark chromosphere, my Quark chromosphere. He felt like. So I called Daystar and I talked with them, and I said, now it's 5 years old. I'm around 5 years old, maybe older. And I said, I don't know, do they go bad? And she said, well, if you've had it for 5 years, then there's a good chance that you need a new blocker. And what was the other thing she said? Blocker and I forgot what it was, but I needed trimmers, a new blocker and trimmers. So I packaged it up. I sent it off. They have it. There is a turnaround, 3 or 4 weeks, which is expected probably this time of year with Christmas. It's going to be maybe a little longer than normal, but at any rate, that's fine. And I love the service at Daystar. In fact, I highly recommend any of their products. What I've had and what I've gotten is just super quality, from the tilt adapter to the dust cap, the cap I use for taking flats. Well, I don't know what it is. It just fits over your refractor, and it takes flats. That, and then I have the Quark chromosphere and the Solar Scout. They're just awesome. So my solar setup right now is missing the chromosphere and the 6580Q, but I do have the sun, and I'm going to head over there and show you what's going on because it is nasty. The sun is just nasty, and we're going to take a look at it. And it looks like I'm not in the frame, which is just fine. But this is a live view of the sun, and now keep in mind that this is the orientation of the sun after a meridian flip. I imaged the sun this morning, and I just looked at one of the images. I'll bring it up. I think I can. And I did a real fast, rough processing of it. But this is the correct orientation of the sun. And this area right here, this part right here, is this was the first image I took. I need to process the last image because this lit up like a Roman candle. And since the meridian flip, it's settled down some. But I wanted to make this video just to address the RUV cut filter issue, and also the fact that if you have a Quark chromosphere and you're fine, and it's 3, 4, or 5 years older, they guarantee the blocker, the blocker and the trimmers up to 5 years, and then there is a cost involved. But to have it fixed and sent back to you, it's like $150, and you really have a new Quark. So I think that's sweet. And at any rate, I am sure that this is next because no sooner than I bought the Quark chromosphere, I jumped on this Solar Scout, and I love them both. So at any rate, this is the region right here that's just gone absolutely nasty nuts, and so I was going to kind of highlight that for you guys. Yeah, that's what it was. An X class flare, and I've got some great images. I was doing a time lapse this morning, Daniel, and this thing right over here went nuts. The whole thing lit up. In fact, when I looked at my histogram, it went off the page, and I thought, well, it can't be. It couldn't have gone off the page. But the reason why it went off the page is the brilliance of this area right here was so wild that was being clipped. And if I drop the exposure in order to bring out detail here, the sun was almost dark. It was so bloody brilliant. So that's so nuts. And so I'm waiting. Dr. Scove will be addressing that X-class flare for sure. But wow. So yeah, well, we'll be feeling the effects of that, Daniel. Sure will. But I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to start snapping a few 500 frames and of the sun. And let me see. I do think I want to raise the exposure a tad bit right in the middle of this capture. And let's see what I got down here. Histogram still looks pretty decent. Maybe a little too bright. Oh yeah, I'm off the page. That's good. I want to get it as bright as I can, and the reason why I like to get the histogram, I stumble on, I'm learning on the fly, and I've been doing this for over 5 years, it looks like, since my gear's that old. But it seems like every time I'm out here, I'm discovering things I should have done on prior videos and that I didn't do on imaging sessions, not videos, but on prior imaging sessions. And I I had made up my mind that my best images were coming when I had a histogram where it peaked at about 80%, between 70 and 80%. And I just stayed on that because I was just convinced. I was just convinced that was the perfect place to park it and to keep it there. And I also was convinced that I would need to bring up uh, my histogram and monitor the luminosity, as well as monitor and babysit the location of the mount. Recenter it, because the luminosity of the sun does change from the time it rises to where you start imaging it to when it's transiting, and then when it starts to move on the opposite side of the meridian, it will change. Your exposure needs to be adjusted, or you're going to have flicker if you're doing a time lapse. So I'm very, very happy now with a histogram that peaks is almost as far right almost as I can get it without clipping any data. I'm happy. And the reason for that is that when I start processing these images, I don't want auto stacker, I want this. When I start processing these images, I want it as bright as I can so that when I flip this curve, in a way, invert this curve, that I can bring out, if it's bright, I can save some of this detail on the rim of the sun. Now, I can expose for the rim of the sun, and it's much easier to show this with the Quark chromosphere than it is with this full disk. But I'm now videos that I've made in the past where I was touting the need to keep your exposure um, within, because you can always bump it up, but you can't save data that's been clipped. You can when you take when any picture that you take, you can always push the exposure to the expense of noise, but you don't. But if you've clipped, you've lost data you can never recover, and so that comes from my horizontal photography experience, and I've just carried that over to astronomical types of imaging, which is true. If you clip it, your data is history. But in this case, having this exposure, and even if you had some clipping, it's going to come from these extremely bright areas, and that's okay, because there's no amount of exposure adjustment that was going to change this. This was so bright, and I'll be processing a few of those images and sending those to the Patreon page for Dr. Skov, and I know I don't pronounce her name right. And if you're out there, come online, Dr. Skov, because you sometimes come on these videos, and if you're happen to be online now, and let me know what you're thinking. Anywho, that's it. I'm going to take a few pictures and go unlive. But I am going to time lapse this. I'm getting ready to start it. Let me do a couple of things. I want to go ahead and get rid of this so I can reset my sun. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use this sunspot as my reference. I've already taken a couple, so I'm going to come back to that. And see, I need to move east. No, I need to move west and center those crosshairs right. Oh, this mount is a booger to control. And then I need to go south. And I'm going to stay with 500 frames. So let's knock off another 500. I'm going to manually click off these frames and just stay here and kind of watch this and babysit it. But this is the area region right here that's gone nuts. I know what I'm going to do. Let me bring this up. There is a picture. We don't need the full view of it. So let me this is 25 minutes ago. This is right before I flipped. Check this out here. Isn't that nuts? My goodness, crazy stuff going on. And let's go see if I can find one older than 25 minutes here. I could go on the NASA website, but we're not going to see today until tomorrow. Uh, and this is 3 minutes ago, and it's settled down some since then. And this is what I'm imaging now. This is 3 minutes old, and this is what I'm getting. But yeah, I do have a time lapse of that, and I'm anxious to get this all done and pull that up. So anyway, let me flip that off. Let's go back to this is 26 minutes ago. So if we go back to this one that's 28 minutes ago, it's settling down now. That would have been, oh yeah, it was at 12 o'clock. Seems like maybe between 11:30 and 12 when this thing really was smoking big time. Yeah, it was smoking. Um, I can almost feel the heat in my office observatory. So yes, I want one thing about imaging during the period of the solar maximum. You might start off thinking, well, there's not a whole lot going on, and before you blink, there's something popping. And this is just nut stuff. I love it, love it, love it. At any rate, that's the news I have on the IR UV cut filter. And use it if you have a refractor that's 80 millimeters and up. If you have a refractor that is under 80 millimeters, then, well, there's no need because there's no need for an energy reduction filter. And I was, Chuck Ayub said that he thought that when he added one, he really thought that he could see a contrast difference. So that's why I added one. But um, in talking with Daystar today, we're thinking that might have been attributed to the difference in scene conditions from one day to the next, and that makes a significant difference. You cannot hardly image the sun in poor scene um, and get focus, but I was I was thinking that maybe that cut filter would bring some benefit, and obviously it doesn't if you're under um, 80 millimeters. And I'll also point out, in my opinion, an 80 millimeter or less refractor is the right size refractor. That's 60 millimeter. This thing right here is a beaut for the entire disc. And I can change that by changing cameras and get put the 174 or the 224 or the one I got now from Sugar Burger Player One, um, and larger pixels. And then this is the one I'm taking using now. I can't talk. I better hush up and sign off. The one I'm using now is the ASI 1600, which is a not a camera really for imaging. Look, I'm running at 14 frames per second, so it's a huge file. It takes longer to process, but boy, the detail is worth it. So that's why I like it. All right, well, guys, I'm going to start my time lapse. I'm going to bid you a good rest of the day. I will be back imaging tonight. I don't know what I'm going to image, but I've got clear skies tonight, so I plan on going live. Um, I know I'm going to be imaging Jupiter with the Smith Cassegrain. Um, I may go to the flip side of the meridian and see if I can't catch a couple Saturn. Seeing is average, and when I get average seeing, I do backflips. Um, we never get good seeing and never get excellent seeing. We do get average. Most of the time, we get poor or pitiful or below pitiful. So, but I got average seeing tonight, so I'm hopeful to get. I want to see something. Oh, it's not here. I was going to bring up WinJuPost and see what Jupiter was going to be doing at 7 o'clock because that's when I plan on starting Jupiter or Saturn or both. And then I'm going to do a deep space image. I may wait for Orion. I finished, well, I did finish the Rosette NGC 2237 NGC 2224. I did finish that, but I only had 9 hours into that. I may add another. I may decide to add some more to that, but I got some work to do on that refractor. I'm still adjusting the back focus because I still don't have that right. But at any rate, enough of that. Y'all have a great rest of the day. I'm starting to ramble and I'm not making any sense. And so it's time to say adios.